Picture this. A young knight is getting absolutely destroyed in his first real battle. His sword is useless, his horse won't listen, and seasoned warriors are literally laughing at him as he stumbles around the battlefield like a complete amateur. Everyone thinks he's done for. Just another rich kid who bought his way into knighthood. But here's the crazy part. This same fool would go on to defeat over 500 knights in combat, serve 5 different kings, and become so feared that enemies would literally flee at the mention of his name. This is the story of how the most mocked knight in Europe became its most legendary warrior. You're standing in the muddy fields of 12th century France, watching massive tournaments that look more like small wars than sporting events. Hundreds of knights are charging at each other with real weapons, real armor, and very real intentions to either get rich or die trying. The ground shakes under thousands of hooves, metal crashes against metal, and the air is thick with dust and blood. This isn't the sanitized, romantic version of knighthood you see in movies. These tournaments are brutal business ventures where knights capture each other for ransom money. If you're skilled enough, you can walk away with a fortune. If you're not, well, let's just say many knights don't walk away at all. In this world, reputation is everything. One embarrassing loss can destroy your career before it even starts. And unfortunately for our hero, William Marshal, his first few attempts at proving himself were about as embarrassing as they come. But everything is about to change. Meet William Marshal, the 4th son of a minor English baron. In medieval times, being the 4th son meant you got basically nothing from daddy's inheritance. No land, no money, no future. Except what you could carve out with your own sword. William was tall, strong, and had been training to fight since he could walk. But when he finally got his shot at real combat in 1166, it was a disaster. According to historical accounts, while some witnesses said he acquitted himself well, his first battle experience received mixed reviews, which in medieval terms usually meant he didn't die, but he didn't impress anyone either. The problem wasn't his strength or his courage. The problem was that William had this annoying habit of getting so focused on winning that he'd forget basic strategy. In his early tournaments, he'd charge straight into crowds of enemies like a maniac, get surrounded, and have to be rescued by his own teammates. Other knights started calling him reckless, stupid, a fool who would get himself killed. Here's a guy with everything to prove and nothing to lose, getting humiliated in front of the only people whose opinions mattered. But William had something most people didn't. He refused to quit learning. The turning point came when William realized he was approaching tournaments all wrong. Instead of trying to be the hero who single-handedly defeats entire armies, he started studying the game like a chess match. William was about 20 years old when he took part in his first tournament, serving in the household of the Lord of Tancarville, Chamberlain to King Henry II. He had to be given a horse to take part in the combat, which tells you exactly how broke and inexperienced he was at the start. But here's where it gets interesting. William began to notice that most knights were fighting for glory, not profit. They wanted to look impressive, win applause, maybe catch the eye of a pretty lady in the stands. William? He wanted to eat. So while other knights were showing off with fancy moves, William developed a simple strategy. Identify the richest looking opponent, take him down as efficiently as possible, and collect the ransom money. In medieval Europe, tournaments were mock battles where knights could showcase their skills, with typically hundreds, sometimes thousands participating. These weren't games, they were business opportunities. And William Marshal was about to turn himself into the medieval equivalent of a professional athlete. What happened next was like watching someone discover they have superpowers. Once William stopped trying to be flashy and started focusing on results, he became absolutely unstoppable. William developed a famous friendship with Henry the Young King, an enthusiastic patron of the tournament circuit, and William continued to achieve renown in the mock battles, amassing wealth and fame like the medieval equivalent of a football star. Think about this for a second. We're talking about an era where being a professional knight was like being a modern-day UFC fighter, business mogul, and celebrity all rolled into one. And William wasn't just successful, he was dominant. At a time when tournaments were dangerous melees that mimicked real warfare, William gained fame for his great skill. He won dozens of tournaments and ransomed countless opponents, which brought him wealth and a strong reputation. But here's the crazy part. William wasn't just collecting participation trophies. He was systematically defeating the best knights in Europe, one by one, tournament by tournament. The same nobles who had laughed at the clumsy kid from England were now paying him massive ransoms just to get their freedom back. Word started spreading across Europe. There's this English knight who shows up to tournaments and basically treats them like his personal ATM machine. Other knights began avoiding events where William was expected to compete. Now picture the most important tournament of William's career. It's 1177, and every major knight in France has gathered for what's essentially the medieval equivalent of the Super Bowl. William rides onto the field, and you can feel the tension. Half the crowd is there hoping to see him finally lose. The other half is there to witness history. The tournament begins, and it's absolute chaos. Dust clouds everywhere, horses screaming, metal crashing against metal like thunder. William spots his target, a wealthy French count wearing armor that probably cost more than most people's houses. The count charges at William with his lance lowered, confident that his superior equipment and royal training will easily handle this English upstart. What he doesn't realize is that William has been studying his fighting style for months, waiting for exactly this moment. William doesn't even bother with fancy footwork. He times his charge perfectly, deflects the count's lance with a move so smooth it looks effortless, and in one fluid motion, grabs the count's reins and yanks him clean off his horse. The entire crowd goes silent for about 2 seconds, then erupts. William became a legendary tournament champion. On his deathbed, he recalled besting 500 knights during his tournament career. 500. That's not just winning, that's complete and total dominance of an entire profession. By the end of this tournament, William has captured 4 more knights, collected enough ransom money to buy his own castle, and earn a reputation that would follow him for the rest of his life. But success in medieval times came with a price that most people don't think about. William Marshal served 4 English monarchs, Henry II, Richard I, John, and Henry III, as a royal advisor and agent and as a warrior of outstanding prowess. When you become the best knight in Europe, you don't get to retire and write your memoirs. Kings start calling. And when kings call, you go to war. Real war, where people actually die. William spent the next several decades fighting in the Crusades, defending English territories in France, and getting involved in political conflicts that would shape the future of entire nations. The same skills that made him rich in tournaments made him invaluable on real battlefields. He served 5 English monarchs: Henry the Young King, Henry II, Richard I, John, and Henry III. Due to William's efforts, the House of Plantagenet was saved during this period. Think about the weight of that responsibility. This guy went from being mocked as a fool to literally holding the future of England in his hands. As regent for the boy King Henry III, he defeated a French invasion force and ensured the survival of Magna Carta. The kid who couldn't win his first tournament eventually became the man who saved one of the most important documents in human history. Here's what makes William Marshal's story so incredible. He didn't succeed because he was naturally gifted or because he had powerful connections. He succeeded because he was willing to be embarrassed, learn from his mistakes, and completely change his approach when the old way wasn't working. The remarkable story of how the 4th son of a minor 12th century baron rose to be one of the richest men of his day and regent of England is a true knight's tale. In a world where your reputation could literally determine whether you lived or died, William had the courage to look foolish while he was learning. Most people would have given up after those first humiliating defeats. William used them as fuel. The next time someone laughs at your early attempts at something difficult, remember the story of William Marshal. Sometimes the difference between being remembered as a fool and being remembered as a legend is simply refusing to quit when everyone expects you to. History is full of underdogs who refuse to accept the world's first impression of them. If you want to hear more stories about people who turn their greatest weaknesses into their greatest strengths, make sure to subscribe, because the past is full of surprises. And some of the best ones started with someone everyone thought was a complete failure.